Good evening, I'm John Dupree. A Boston jury decides the case of an accused cop killer, while O.J. Simpson is accused of dreaming about murder. Driving turns deadly on area roadways, and some are saying men just aren't what they used to be. The 10 o'clock news is just seconds away.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the WB this week. Next week on the Wayans Brothers, Marlon falls for a woman who loves poetry, and Sean helps him find his sensitive side. Then, Robert Townsend's planning the perfect Valentine outing till Mother Nature steps in on the Parenthood. And on Unhappily Ever After, how will Jack apologize for the moped tracks he's left on his mother-in-law's face? The WB, continuing to weave a hairpiece of fun on your otherwise bald life. Ciao.
This is WLVI-TV 56, a Tribune broadcasting station.
Good evening, I'm John Dupree.
I'm Karen Marinella. No threat of a deadlock this time as a jury decides the case of an accused cop killer.
A witness says O.J. Simpson dreamed of killing his ex-wife, Nicole.
And Governor Weld finds himself at the end of the line in Washington. This is the 10 o'clock news. Guilty of murder in the first degree, words 20-year-old Terry Patterson didn't want to hear. This afternoon, a jury found him guilty of killing a Boston cop. Terrell Harris reports Patterson is sentenced to life in prison while his co-defendant awaits a retrial.
Is the defendant Terry L. Patterson guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Guilty of what, sir?
Guilty of murder.
It took the Suffolk County Superior Court jury just over 3 hours to return the verdict. 20-year-old Terry Patterson is guilty of shooting to death Boston police detective John Mulligan in September of 1993. He is also guilty of armed robbery and 2 counts of possessing unlicensed firearms. It is the verdict Detective Mulligan's family has awaited since the murder and Patterson's arrest.
There are no winners here today. You know, this isn't about revenge. This is the system of justice that my brother loved. And it worked for him, just like it will work for you or me or anyone.
Detective John Mulligan was murdered as he slept in his car outside this all-night Roslindale drugstore. He was working a paid detail. Mulligan was shot 5 times in the face at close range. Prosecutors say the motive for the killing was stealing his service pistol. Throughout the trial, Patterson maintained his innocence and does steal despite the guilty verdict.
He's confused, and he still maintains his innocence. Says he was not involved in this.
The first-degree murder conviction carries with it a mandatory life sentence without parole. The conviction will be appealed automatically. Meantime, Patterson will serve his time in MCI Cedar Junction.
In the end, my brother will have his justice. And the men who murdered him will be tried and convicted and have their day in court.
Patterson is one of 2 men charged with the murder. His co-defendant, Sean Ellis, has already been tried, but that trial ended with a deadlocked jury. A retrial is scheduled for Ellis in March. In Boston, Terrell Harris, the 10 o'clock news.
There's been some speculation that Patterson might be called to testify against his co-defendant, Sean Ellis, but Patterson's attorney says not to her knowledge. Nancy Hurley says she hasn't been approached by prosecutors with that request.
A drunk driver is being blamed tonight for the death of an 18-year-old honors student. Police say 52-year-old Bernard Doobie was driving under the influence when his car crossed the center line into oncoming traffic. The accident happened on Route 1 around 7 o'clock this evening, about a half hour after he allegedly committed a hit and run in a nearby town. Today, friends, family, and his former teachers remember the victim, Joseph Ligowry.
You're probably looking at a role model that any parent would be very proud of to have as a son, or any school would be very proud of to have as a student.
Ligowry's high school music teacher says Ligowry always did his best, whether it was in music or in academics. Ligowry graduated in the top 10 of his class last year. The 18-year-old was currently studying marketing at Northern Essex Community College. Friends and family gathered at his home today to share their loss and to remember their friend.
He's happy. Now he's in heaven, and he's a saint, probably.
Ligowry will be buried at 10 a.m. on Friday at the Immaculate Conception Church in Newburyport. Police say they will arraign Doobie when his condition improves. He is currently in guarded condition at Boston City Hospital. He's charged with drunk driving and motor vehicle homicide. 2 people are dead after an oil truck crashed into a car at a Brockton intersection at about 3 o'clock this afternoon. The victims were passengers in this blue Cadillac. Witnesses say the driver of the Cadillac ran a red light. Police say both of the drivers' vehicles survived and are being treated at area hospitals. Police are not releasing the names of any of the victims. A Boston minister is leading a grassroots-style investigation into the October murder of a 9-year-old boy. Reverend Bruce Wall says he has information that strongly suggests police have the wrong young man in custody. The Reverend is now risking his safety and his reputation to find proof. Since November 1st of last year, the Reverend Bruce Wall's self-appointed mission has had less to do with preaching as searching. He's looking for suspects in the drive-by shooting death of a 9-year-old boy named Jermaine Goffigan. Hours after police announced the arrest of a suspect, Wall says he started receiving phone calls at his office. He says the calls were from young people telling him they'd seen the shooting and that the police suspect, Donnell Johnson, didn't do it. The Reverend is working closely with Johnson's family now to clear the young man's name.
I've asked the homicide detective unit not to close this case. We have even given homicide names of suspects that we wanted them to look at. That's how serious we are about this.
What young residents of the Academy and Bromley Heath neighborhoods claim to know, they are keeping to themselves. They tell Reverend Wall they fear for their safety if they rat on gang members. Reverend Wall, along with city social workers who are in these neighborhoods, say the fear is justified. The threat is real. In his flyers and a full-page newspaper ad soon to be published, this minister is now asking potential witnesses to come forward and to take a risk he himself has already taken. You don't fear you may get in trouble if you get too involved? After all, you're a juvenile court magistrate.
I think it's important for me, wearing my other hat as a minister of the gospel, to stand strong when there is an injustice.
The Suffolk County District Attorney was unavailable for comment tonight. Boston police officials tell the 10 o'clock news tonight they will not ignore any credible new leads in this case.
Damaging testimony in the O.J. Simpson trial today. A prosecution witness says Simpson dreamed of killing his ex-wife Nicole. Our Simpson correspondent Marta Waller standing by live in Los Angeles with the latest. Marta?
Well, today's testimony was by far the most compelling since the trial began. Ronald Shipp, a former Los Angeles police officer and friend of O.J. Simpson, was clearly distressed as he testified about his conversation with Simpson the night after the murders.
He kind of jokingly just said, you know, to be honest, Shipp, that's what he called me, Shipp, said I've had some dreams of killing her.
In his testimony, the jury heard Shipp admit he told this story to author Sheila Weller for her book Raging Heart. Shipp said he had visited Simpson's home dozens of times, had often played tennis there, and considered himself a friend. So he never told police about the dream comment.
I mean, I've loved this man for 26 years. And all of a sudden, you know, my thought process, like I said, I wanted nothing to do with it at all.
Defense attorney Carl Douglas insisted that conversation never took place and fiercely cross-examined Shipp.
So did you lie when you didn't tell me about that dream?
I sure did.
You did? You've lied a few times, haven't you, sir?
Never in court. Never.
But you've lied a few times concerning what you know about Mr. Simpson. True?
Yeah, I'd say.
Under stringent questioning, Shipp admitted his friendship with Simpson was not intimate.
You're not really this man's friend, are you, sir?
Well, okay, all right. If you want me to really explain it, I guess you can say I was like everybody else, one of his servants. I did police stuff for him all the time. I ran license plates. That's what I was. Okay, I mean, like I said, I love the guy.
Shipp's involvement in the Simpsons' relationship developed when Nicole asked him for help after she was beaten in 1989 because Shipp had experience with the LAPD as a spousal abuse specialist. Because he didn't do more to help when asked, Shipp felt partially responsible for the death of Nicole, and that, he says, was the reason he spoke to author Weller for her book.
I'm doing this for my conscience and my peace of mind.
Legal analyst Irene Ayala says Shipp's testimony may be a big risk for the prosecution.
the main concern that the prosecution should have at this point is the fact that there are so many inconsistencies of the way that Mr. Shipp portrayed himself in terms of his relationship with the Simpson family and the way that the testimony actually came out. His credibility is going to be a significant issue in this case at this point by the defense.
Douglas' final question today put Shipp's personal life in the spotlight in a very unflattering way.
Did you ask Mr. Simpson to go and bring you some wine?
That's correct.
You drink a lot, don't you?
I used to.
You've had a drinking problem, haven't you?
In the past, I have.
Judge Ito adjourned court early today so that those who wish to could attend the funeral of Bob Chandler, former football player and longtime friend of O.J. Simpson. Chandler died just last week from lung cancer at the age of 45. When court resumes tomorrow, Ronald Shipp will be back on the stand for more cross-examination. Karen?
Marta, was there some doubt earlier in the day today as to whether Shipp would actually testify about these dreams at all?
There was, and I think that Judge Ito made it very clear that he is going to hold another hearing on this before, out of the presence of the jury, hold a hearing on it to be very specific. As you may have noticed, they're holding sidebar conferences out of the presence of the jury to really clearly define the limits of what can and cannot be testified to.
Marta Waller reporting live from Los Angeles. Thank you.
It was supposed to be a routine pretrial hearing for accused clinic gunman John Salvi. It turned out to be anything but. Kathy Calnan tells us today's proceedings took on some of the confrontational tone of the Simpson trial.
All right, I'm talking now. Fine. Okay, now stop talking. You say fine. Put your hand down. All right, well, I would like to be heard at the appropriate time. Well, when if it's appropriate. Right.
It was John Salvi's day in court, but it was the attorneys who took center stage in a dispute about the media.
Okay. And in the meantime, Your Honor, I would ask, you know, if Mr. Carney has a defense to this case, the place to do it is in the courtroom, not outside on the courthouse steps. And if he has a formal defense that he wants to make known to the court, he can make it known in open court.
These comments about the only reason Mr. Salvi is here is so that a press conference can be held. That is so unprofessional and beneath a lawyer in this Commonwealth, never mind someone who's supposed to be in a leadership position.
The exchange followed the prosecution's unsuccessful attempt to postpone today's hearing. Prosecutor John Kilvin requested the delay because some of the victims injured during the December 30th abortion clinic shootings are still too sick to testify before the grand jury. 50 witnesses have been called so far. Outside the courtroom, Salvi's attorneys went before the cameras to deny they are trying the case in the media. They also skirted the question of whether they'll seek an insanity defense.
Right now, we would like to obtain as much information as we can about the days and weeks prior to the shooting in John's life.
Salvi is scheduled to return to municipal court in 2 weeks, but it's unlikely he'll appear. That's because the grand jury investigation is expected to wrap up before then, and if he is indicted, the case will be transferred to Superior Court. In Brookline, Kathy Callan, the 10 o'clock news.
The defense requested access to police reports and physical evidence in the case, but the prosecution was unwilling to comply. The judge will decide if the security of the victims will be at risk if the items are released to Salvi's attorneys.
Let's get the early bird weather forecast now from Mike Wonkum in the Weather Center. It may be February, but that doesn't mean we've escaped winter's worst, does it?
No, we've got some cold air coming, but today, what a day we had today out there. High temperature was 48 degrees, and well, let me show you the temperatures outside right now. It's still into the 40s in many locations, and we're seeing very, very mild conditions tonight. Now, of course, this all has to come to an end, and as the cold air comes in, we're seeing a few sprinkles out there, even an occasional flurry out to the west, but we may see a little bit more of that tonight, and tomorrow morning on your drive in, you might run into a flake of snow here and there, but nothing that's going to accumulate. So here's your early bird forecast for tomorrow morning. Looks like you'll see a few flurries in the morning, and then the skies will clear away. We'll see partly cloudy skies, but notice the temperature, a good 12 degrees colder than what it was today, and the cold air is coming in. Well, coming up with the weather, we're going to talk about that cool air. We're also going to talk about all that flooding that's been going on in Europe. I'll give you the latest on that, and believe it or not, we may actually have a snowstorm coming for the weekend. I'll give you the details on that a bit later on. John, Karen?
Thank you, Mike. See you later. Carrying a balance on your credit cards, it's going to cost you a bit more each month. That story coming up in the 10 o'clock news.
Also emotional scenes in a New York courtroom. A mother confronts the carjacker who killed her son.
Just look at the media attention our own Governor Bill Weld is drawing down here in Washington. I'm John Keller, and I'll have details about Bill Weld's Potomac fever coming up on the 10 o'clock news.
And I'm Susan Corwin. Here's a look at the LifeWatch menu for tonight. Your cholesterol level isn't the only red flag for heart disease anymore. We'll tell you the latest level to watch. It's a sperm count down. The question is why, and the link between estrogen and breast cancer.
You're watching the 10 o'clock news on TV 56.
Vacation. Come and discover the continent of Puerto Rico. Discover the warmth of our tropical beaches, the wonders of our natural beauty, the legends of our centuries-old cities, and the challenges of everything you've ever wanted to do. Only a continent could offer so many great vacation experiences. Only Puerto Rico puts it all within your reach.
Here are tonight's winning lottery numbers.
Announcing Ford's biggest breakthrough minivan offer ever. The all-new front-wheel drive Ford Windstar is only $259 a month. The lowest payment on Windstar ever. It's loaded with standard features like dual airbags, four-wheel anti-lock brakes, and much more. Plus, Windstar has the quietest and roomiest interior of all leading minivans. But Ford's breakthrough offer is only at your New England Ford dealer during Minivan Month. For more information on Windstar, call 1-800-854-1500 now or see your Ford dealer today.
When I was little, my parents taught me the safety rules. Never talk to strangers. Stop, look, and listen. If my parents knew then what I know now, there'd be another rule. Cigarette companies are out to get you. Watch your back. They're strangers who come into our neighborhoods with smiles and promises, spending millions to get us to start smoking. Let's warn our children. This stranger is a killer.
Black History Month.